One quick thing before we get going. A few comments have mentioned not seeing my latest video in their notification inbox. So to try to counteract YouTube's bullshit, follow me on Twitter. I announce my new uploads on there right as they go up, and my latest video is always my pinned tweet. Now on to why you clicked on this video, to learn why every top player is wrong, and Dizzy is actually a bottom tier bitch. I'm joking, hold the hate comments. As the thumbnail says, this is just shameless clickbait. I am nowhere near good enough to make an actual tier list for +R. Instead, this is something of a personal matchup tier list to go along with my Diaries of a Beginner series, which catalogs my journey through learning +R. After 600 or so matches, I've developed tastes for who I like to play against. I thought it'd be fun to make a video on that topic and give each character a little blurb as to why they're ranked a certain way. The rankings here have no firm rules. I might put a character I lose to often in a high tier, because even in a loss, they're fun to play against. The inverse is also true. Just because I can beat a character regularly, doesn't mean the matches themselves are actually enjoyable. It'll be interesting to see how this tier list changes over time, and for what reasons. These characters are ranked favorite to least favorite, so we'll be starting off with the character I like playing against the most, which is Testament. I did a whole puff piece on Testament at the end of my last diary video. It's about 10.5 minutes in if you want to hear it, so I'll keep this bit short. I feel like Testament makes me do more than other characters, but at a pace where I can take them on easier. Being able to use Axel's unique tools to deal with their unique tools is always a fun part of facing them, like using his long-range pokes to get rid of Testament's webs without ever having to get caught in them. I feel like my overall game gets better when I face Testaments. The same can be said for our next character, Slayer. Another character I've talked about before, I think with Slayer, it's that they're the character that made me explore the air game and start jumping with purpose. Having to play against their side-switching nonsense, I felt like a genius when I realized I should stop standing there and trying to block everything, and just jump to stop either option. Otherwise, I don't really know what I like about playing Slayer. I've just got that memory of having a breakthrough while playing against one, and it's stuck to the character as a whole. Because of that, I feel like I'm more inclined to take risks against them and explore my options. I rarely if ever feel like I'm out of a game when matched up against them, even when it's glaringly obvious that I am done for. Now in a similar vein to Testament, third place goes to Zappa. I've run into a lot of these lately, and find the micro games of having to work around their summons extremely fun. Like Testament, the matchup is centered on having to do more to fight them, but with the pace being fairly manageable. Figuring out how to get around their sword summon specifically has been a blast. It's also the summon of theirs that I want to have the best handle on facing, because after watching a good handful of Zappas just in passing, that blade seems damn near demonic in the hands of someone who knows what they're doing with it. Every time I face a Zappa, I'm getting the chance to practice something I want to practice, which makes the experience all the more fun. This was the original Big 3 from when I first posted a mock-up of this tier list on Twitter about a week ago. But after further consideration, there's another character that definitely belongs up here. Potemkin. After my last video, it wouldn't have made sense for him to be outside the top tier of my affinity. I had my biggest breakthrough yet against a slew of Potemkins, and got a good grip on the matchup. I like the zoner grappler dynamic, I'm finding a lot of fun in that. It forces me to lock into a very specific style of play where the overall game plan is a lot easier for a beginner player like me to understand. Playing against Pot is where I feel like I'm making my best usage of 6k, which is helpful because I really want to get better at using that move overall. Dropping a tier and starting off with a tie for 5th, we land on Baiken and Anji. I find it amusing that these two tied for me, given how often they're shipped together by Guilty Gear fans. The Baikens and Anjis I've played against have all made for interesting challenges. Their different blends of offense and defense initially proved frustrating until I got a better handle on my general game plan and became more aware of when and where to pick my spots. Plus, they both have visually appealing moves and combos that, even if I'm getting beaten up, makes for fun viewing. Anji honestly might have the best looking combos in the game. They are gorgeous at points. Next, we have a similar situation to Testament and Zappa, though with what feels like considerably more volatility in the form of Venom. I haven't felt as helpless against any Testament or Zappa as I have against some of the Venoms I've played, but playing around his ball setups is still fun nonetheless. I'm finding I like characters that create a sort of maze dynamic between direct interactions, a bill he absolutely fits. Once I get a really good understanding of Axel, Venom's a character I'd love to pick up next, because he seems to offer a lot of player expression with the different ball patterns he can set up. I have liked playing against Venom from the very start of this journey, something that can't be said for, surprise, Order Soul. Well, you probably didn't see this one coming, did ya? And to be frank, neither did I. Considering I labeled him as one of the 3 characters I most hate playing against in my last video. But since that script was written, which was a few weeks before the video went up, I've gotten to play some more Order Souls and have been getting a better feel for the character by trying to keep the game at certain ranges. They've gone from an annoyance I can't figure out to a fun foe that pushes me to play Axel at mid-range to get the most out of the match. Like Potemkin, they're a character whose game plan is a lot more visible to me than most at this point, though with that game plan against Haas being more difficult to implement. In contrast to that, we have Cliff, a weird little guy. I don't understand the matchup that much, but I follow a few cool Cliff players on Twitter, and watching all the dumb shit he can get away with has brought him some goodwill with me. I think I've gone even against the last few Cliffs I've played, and yeah, the matches look stupid, but it's fun to laugh at. The next character is Jam. I could not come up with a good segue from Cliff to her, so here we are. I have faced a ton of Jams. It's probably one of the characters I face the most actually, and I don't mind that. They make for a fun challenge. It helps that their moves look cool too, so I can enjoy the show even when they're kicking my ass. They tend to keep me on my toes, which was frustrating in the beginning, but is something I really appreciate about them now. They make me make faster decisions, which is something I really need to work on. And now, we drop into the tier with the least amount of strong feelings attached to it. A crapshoot of weirdos for the most part until we reach the very bottom. Starting things off, we've got Eddie. Similar to Cliff, I've yet to figure out how to approach the Eddie matchup, but haven't disliked the matches I've played against them either. They're probably the closest to being bumped up a tier, as I've found some fun and some lessons in the matches I've played against them. If they were as funny and stupid looking as Cliff, they would definitely be up there. Up next is my boy, Axel. Mirror matches break even. On one hand, it's cool to be able to pick up new ideas from seeing how someone else plays my character against me. On the other hand, getting beaten by my own character feels weirdly personal. They balance each other out. In direct opposition to the idea of balance, we've got Chip. When it's going good, it's real fun and Chip's health bar just melts. When it's going bad, it's like trying to swat a fly you just can't get to fast enough, buzzing around like a little jackass. This is one of those matchups that I think could be really fun once I get a better handle on things. Instead of putting up a maze like Testament or Zappa would, Chip's wild movement is his maze. Next up is May, another victim of my inability to segue creatively. I haven't faced a lot of Mays to tell you the truth. The ones I have faced have been a bit frustrating, but this feels more like a result of lacking experience against the character than the character themselves being frustrating to play against. Very similar boat to Chip, and a character I'd like to play more of. Onward to ABBA. I've faced a few of them, haven't hated it, but also wasn't excited by it. I don't have much to say about ABBA, to be honest. They're just sort of there. Now we can get to the bottom of this middling tier with a character I wish I could enjoy facing, but can't. Robo-Kai. The worst part about this is that there is not another character I would want to enjoy playing against more than Robo-Kai. He's a big reason I got more into Guilty Gear, actually. Go back and watch my first video on handheld fighters. I spent like 2 minutes gushing about how much I liked him. and that was just from fooling around in the arcade mode of X2 Reload to get some filler footage. He was a dumb, fun character in that experience, but doesn't seem to have that same charm in Plus R. Another thing is that, unlike a lot of the characters both above and below him, I don't see any pathway for his standing to improve. Playing against him is whatever to me, and I think it always will be. On to the dearths, the characters that make me shake my head when their profile slides across the screen. Let's kick things off with everyone's favorite Mad Doctor, Faust. I think if I was playing Fausts at around my same level, he'd be in meh tier. But even from the beginning, it's felt like I've always been getting put up against Fausts that are noticeably better than me on a fundamental level. Just as an example, I landed in a match with probably the best Faust in the US, Elven Shadow, within my first 100 matches. That's the only time I've gotten double perfected thus far. Which, I mean, if anyone's gonna do that to me, it might as well be one of the best players in the country, but you see what I mean. On to Eno. I've faced like one Eno thus far, so their placement here is basically meaningless, and only so that I can get every character on the list. That one match, though, was not fun, so here we are. Thankfully, I have a lot more to say about the remaining characters on this list, starting with Justice. The only character in this tier for the simple reason that I have no clue how to play against it, and bungling my way through matches hasn't made for the most enjoyable experience against them specifically. They feel like a bigger version of Venom, but with stuff that just sort of breaks my brain. Ending this tier off, we've got Brisket, Bridget, meme. The closest to being bumped down a tier, I heavily dislike fighting Bridgets. More than just about anyone else, Bridget feels like a scrub killer, and that's exactly what it did when I faced a fair few of them in my first bunch of matches before I got my feet under me. Even now, with some handle on how to play, I still find Bridget to be incredibly annoying to face. Whenever I get into a match with one, I want to get out of it. Not that I'll give my opponent a free win, but that I'm happy when the match is over, just for the chance to face somebody else. Though not including the characters in our last tier, beginning with the trio of Johnny, Milia, and the poster girl for this video, Dizzy. See, I was being honest. These three are victims of Eno syndrome, as I'm now calling it. Haven't played a whole lot of them up to this point, and their major tools feel set up to punish people lacking basic matchup knowledge more than most characters. Of these three, Dizzy is actually the closest to being bumped up a tier. I've played a few of them recently and not completely disliked the experience. Now we get to the final two, the poster boys for Guilty Gear that managed to be the two matchups I despise. In the lesser of two evils role, we've got bad guy, Soul. I play some of my worst matches against Soul, which isn't helped by having what feels like similarly ranked players dice me up with 50% combos off of what usually seems like routine mistakes. Although this could easily be an example of Faust syndrome in that, unbeknownst to me, I'm actually playing souls that are significantly higher rank than me. Either way, fuck 'em. Kai gets his own tier all to himself below everyone else. I have a visceral hatred directed at the thought of playing this character, and yet have played against them more than anyone else on the roster. Fate is indeed a cruel mistress. I cannot figure out how to work around his tools, and always seem to play with the least poise against them. The three biggest mid-match mistakes I've made so far have all come against a Kai, most notably the time I lost a match by air dashing into his electrical ball thing. Once I get over this hurdle, I think the matchup would be fun to play, but we're not there yet, and my matches against them can get ugly. Also, getting outzoned as an Axel is one of the most frustrating things I've ever experienced in gaming. And there we have it. Every character ranked, by how much I enjoy playing against them. I hope you enjoyed this side quest in my Diary series, a new episode of which should be out soon. If you did, follow me on Twitter, subscribe to this channel, and give this video a like. I think that's what I'm supposed to say at the end of these. I've got a big video in the works that should be something special, so be sure to not miss out when it comes out. Anyways, peace.